All right, another Big East preview. This time, Akeem Glaspie is with me to talk about the Butler Bulldogs. And Akeem, this Butler team, they were 18 and 15 overall last season, 9 and 11 in Big East play, which actually surprised some people based on preseason expectations. They ended up not making the NCAA tournament. They lost to Minnesota in the first round of the NIT. You look back at the beginning of this offseason, they lost three big names from that team in Jalen Thomas, DJ Davis, and Posh Alexander. They brought in three new transfers. All of them are expected to play a role. So let me start here with this. It's been 6 straight seasons without an NCAA tournament appearance for the Bulldogs. How much pressure do you feel is on Thad Matta to get that done this year?
That's a great question. I wouldn't say there's pressure on Thad because, I mean, if you look at his track record, he's won everywhere that he's been. I mean, this is his second stint at Butler. His first season at Butler, however many years ago, was really successful. He's won at Xavier and Ohio State. So, I mean, everywhere that Thad's been, he's won. So I feel like while there's expectations for the team to improve, I don't know if they're necessarily expectations to make the NCAA tournament. Well, I will say I do think this is an NCAA tournament team. I feel like the talent is there, but I don't necessarily feel there's pressure to make the tournament. I feel like there's definitely pressure to improve and feel like the program is heading in the right way or right direction. And I feel like if you look at the recruiting, that is the case. I mean, they've been recruiting really well. I'm sure we'll get to that later, but the program is headed in the right direction. So I feel like that's more so the case than, necessarily make an NCAA tournament.
Do you feel like the fan base then, and I mean, content is never the right word. A fan base is never content, but do you feel like overall they were fairly happy with the way things played out last year? The fact that the team did show significant improvement from year 1 to year 2 under Mata and feel like things are moving forward?
I mean, it's tough because some of their losses are bad. Like in year 1, they had like a lot of 20-point losses, some losing streaks, and some games that they shouldn't have lost. So, I mean, there are some kind of ugly periods and kind of stretches there where they'll go on like 3-2 game losing streaks where they're kind of non-competitive losses. So, I feel like if you eliminate those games, then expectations will be fine. I mean, they can be content with, being competitive, but I think it's more so how the team plays, and they've got to eliminate some of those ugly losses and maybe start knocking off some of these upper echelon Big East teams. Obviously they play Xavier tough all the time, but the Marquettes and the UConns, if they can just maybe split some games with those programs, then they could maybe move from content to happy, I would say.
Pierre Brooks and Jamil Telfort led the team in scoring last year, where 2 of the 4 Bulldogs who averaged in double figures last season. Do you think that those 2 will pick up a lot of the scoring slack left by DJ Davis and Posh Alexander? Like they'll score even more than they did last season? Or do you think there are some other players on this roster that could step up and average double figures like the 2 guys that departed?
Yeah, I mean, I think the team starts and finishes with Jamil Telfort. I mean, he's their best two-way player. He's their best scorer. He's their best all-around player. He's a talented 3-level scorer. He can score at the basket, mid-range, and from 3. And then Pierre Brooks is kind of the X factor. I mean, he's kind of living up to his recruiting hype. Former Mr. Basketball in Michigan, and I feel like between the 2 of them would have the next level to reach where he can be a 18, 20-point scorer. He's that talented and he has that type of physical ability and capability to reach that level. But and to have 2 more double-digit scores to replace DJ and Posh. I mean, we'd be looking at someone like Colby King, the Tulane transfer, or Jamie Kaiser, the Maryland transfer. And I mean, that's tough to say. I mean, Jamie struggled at Maryland. He comes in with the reputation as a shooter, but the numbers didn't necessarily reflect that. So asking him to make a double-digit jump would be tough, but I do think Colby King, the Tulane transfer, he is talented. He's going to bring an element of offense and playmaking that they didn't necessarily have with Posh Alexander. While Posh was getting it done on defense and running the team, Colby can be that double-digit scorer who can finish at the rim and shoot from 3 as well. So I guess I gave you 3 double-digit scores. I don't necessarily know who that 4th will be, and maybe if it's a Finley Bizjack or a Landon Moore off the bench or someone along those lines, or a Patrick McCaffrey. But so will they have 4 double-digit scores? Possibly. Will Jamil and Pierre take another step? Maybe, but I think Pierre is kind of the X factor there who can make the biggest leap, I would say.
No, I did my deep dive into Butler last week, and I would say my answer would have been very in line with yours. It feels like one of those two guys can maybe boost their scoring a bit and take up some of that slack. And then maybe you can get one more guy into that double digit range as a scorer, but I don't see it likely that they'll have 4 double digit scores on this year's team. You had a good segue there because you started talking about Colby King, the Tulane transfer. And I wanted to ask you about him and specifically the point guard position for this Butler team, because when I look at the roster, I don't really see like a natural point guard, a bona fide, definite point guard. I would assume Colby King is the favorite for that spot. Could we maybe see Finley Bizjack there? Like, who is going to be playing the point guard spot for this team?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say Colby is going to get the first crack. He is a kind of an offensive-oriented player, not like a lead guard like Posh, but I mean, Colby's talented. He's a playmaker. He's going to get it done one way or another. So I definitely think he gets the first crack at it. Finley can do some playmaking as well. Landon Moore, St. Francis transfer from last year, he'll also play some backup point guard. But really, Jamil Telford, he's going to have the ball in his hand a lot. He does a lot of initiating. A lot of the offense runs through him. I mean, he averaged, almost 5 assists a game last year. So when it comes to playmaking, while they might not necessarily have a true lead guard, they have a lot of playmakers. I mean, everyone on the team can, make plays and initiate the offense. So I think Colby will have the ball in his hands a lot, but I also think Jamil will kind of be the X factor in terms of playmaking and running the offense.
And then my biggest concern when I look at this roster is the center position. The front court wasn't great last year, and Jalen Thomas left. He was clearly their best, most productive player in that front court. Is the plan to roll with Andre Screen at the center spot, or do they think Bowden Kapke is capable of making a major leap, or maybe there's someone else that I'm not aware of?
I mean, I think that would be the kind of plan A is Andre. I mean, Andre Screen he's a big body. He's a true 7-footer, very efficient around the rim, very talented shot blocker, but he's not someone you want playing, necessarily 30 minutes a night. She should stay in that 20 to 25 range. And if he's in foul trouble, I will say Bowden Kapke, just like being around him and watching him play throughout the summer and what I've seen of limited practice, he's gotten bigger. He's definitely, he doesn't look like a freshman anymore. He's obviously heading into a sophomore year, but he kind of looks like a grown man. He has that kind of grown man body that you need to play center in the Big East. And he's skilled. I mean, he can shoot from 3. He can also play make a little bit. He kind of has a good rapport with Finley Bizjack. The 2-man game between them has been pretty impressive to see so far. So, I mean, obviously they probably want one more big body. So if they need, but again, if they need to go small, they have, Jamil or Patrick McCaffrey or even Pierre Brooks, who could play some 3-4 for them, while none of them are a true 5. They have big bodies if they need to go small and play maybe a 5-out offense if they wanted to. But yes, I do think the center position starts with Andre, and you'll see a lot of Bowden as well. And even someone like Augusto Cassia, the freshman from Brazil last year. He's a long, super athletic kid. He can guard 1 through 5 if you need him to. I mean, again, I know you probably wouldn't want him playing the majority of the time at 5, but he's someone who has the strength and size and athleticism to play some 5 if needed.
You kind of brought up the possibility of a quote unquote death lineup, I guess, if you will. Like the idea of Patrick McCaffrey sliding down to play the 5 potentially was something I had thought about last week when I was looking at this team. And he is clearly not a Big East center. He's closer to small forward probably than he is an actual center. But without the center options that you would like to have in the Big East, I do almost wonder. We've seen Thad Matta now take back-to-back, like really up-tempo guards. Posh Alexander was that way. Colby King is a guy who thrived in transition at Tulane and played in a really fast system. I'm almost wondering if Thad Matta is trying to move towards a more up-tempo, space the floor, shoot more threes style of play than he has in the past. Is that something that you're monitoring here?
I mean, they have an open practice on Saturday, so I guess we'll get our first look at that. But yeah, I mean, if in terms of like getting up and down and running, they have so much versatility. Like I said, with Pierre and Jamil, who can play, make, and shoot. That'd be great to see. I know Pierre is a great rhythm shooter, and you'd want him shooting in high volume. I mean, losing DJ Davis is tough. He was one of the best shooters that I've seen in a long time. So, I mean, that losing him doesn't necessarily lend to playing, at the fastest pace, but I know they're all about matchups and utilizing the personnel that they have. So I think, Coach Alex Barlow, he's just everyone I talk to just loves his offensive system and his kind of creativity and his, mind for calling offensive plays. So I think they'll do a good job of utilizing the players that they have. I don't know if it'll be the fastest pace, but I do think a player like Kobe is built to push the ball and play at tempo if they need to. So yeah, I think Kobe will kind of be the deciding factor of pushing the tempo when they need to.
We talked about Colby King, the Tulane transfer at the guard spot. We talked about Patrick McCaffrey, who's the veteran player coming over from Iowa, who's 6'9" forward. Jamie Kaiser is a guy you mentioned earlier when we first started this. He's a 6'6", 205-ish pound wing coming over from Maryland. Only played 1 year there. He didn't quite live up to expectations. Really had a tough year on the offensive end where he shot really low percentages. What is the scuttlebutt or the rumors going around Indianapolis about Jamie Kaiser? Is this a guy that they think they maybe have a diamond in a rough, a guy who just needed a change of scenery?
Yes, I think that's the perfect way to put it. I mean, like I said, he came from IMG Academy, so obviously that's a powerhouse program. The talent is there. It was, a 4-star recruit, but the just numbers weren't there. The shooting numbers just, I don't know. I talked to his high school coach after he signed, and it wasn't like a mechanical thing or a confidence thing. It was just he had a poor season. So I think a reset and, a change of scenery will be great for him. And he's definitely, well, I don't know if he'll have DJ Davis's impact from the perimeter. He'll kind of be able to fill that role at the 2 guard as their marksman. So I do think Jamie will play a big role this year.
What would your starting lineup look like? I know I'm putting you on the spot here. We've got several weeks of practice still, but if you were to throw one out there, what would you say?
I'd go Colby at the point. I'd go Jamie at the 2, Jamil and Pierre at your 3-4. Kind of they're interchangeable. And man, I'd go. I guess it would depend on the matchup, but I might go Patrick at the 5, and just the way that Patrick can facilitate, and he's such a good post feeder, and he finds people in rhythms. Just having that playmaking at the 5 would be great. Now, if I'm playing UConn or someone like that, I might need a more traditional center. I'll start Andre and have Patrick be my first guy off the bench, or even Bowden. I mean, have Bowden start at the 5 and, have Andre be my first guy at the bench. So I think the first 4 is kind of set in, I would say, or unless maybe you'll go Finley Bizjack at the 2, but I think Jamie will get the first crack at the 2. But if you want to go small, I'd say Patrick. If you want to go big and traditional, I'll go Andre at the 5.
I love how into the small lineup you are right now, because I thought I was going out like on my own planet there last week when I was looking at the roster thinking, I think these guys got to play small as much as they can. To hear you kind of back that up here is interesting. So I'm interested, or I'm looking forward to watching this Butler team take the court this year, because I don't know exactly what to make of them. When you look at their strengths and weaknesses, what jumps out to you? We've talked about some of the things here, but you personally, strengths, weaknesses, what would you throw out there?
I mean, strength will be offense. I mean, they showed that last year. They can hang with a lot of teams, and they played even a lot of overtime games where, scoring was never going to be the issue. It's just could they get the stop on the other end to keep it close. Their depth will be tested, but again, I like the rotation. And, Thad, he doesn't really play the deepest lineup, especially as the season progresses. So he's going to want to have 3, 4 guys tops that he can rely on. And I think they have that. Defense is going to be, and rebounding, obviously, especially interior defense is going to be the issue. I mean, if Andre Screen gets in foul trouble, then they're losing pretty much their main shot blocker. I mean, like I said, Augusto Cassia, he's a kind of someone we should look at in terms of playing a lot of backup 5 and just the rim protection that he can bring, but he's still kind of a young player. I mean, he's in his 20s, but he's a sophomore in terms of eligibility, and he's kind of just young in kind of a basketball sense. But so interior defense would be the biggest kind of question mark. I won't necessarily call it a weakness right now, but that's something I'm going to have to see, because Bowden, while he has gotten stronger, I mean, he's going to have to go against, a lot of grown men in the Big East. And will he be able to hold up for extended stretches down low? That's something we've yet to see. So I would definitely say the interior defense is going to be the biggest question mark, and offense is going to be the strong suit.
Yeah, Donovan Clingan is gone, but Ryan Kalkbrenner is still there. So you're still going to have to deal with some size inside this year. And finally, we'll wrap it up with this, Akeem. In terms of projected finish, where would you have this Butler team? In the Big East, of course.
Yes, I mean, I know last year they were projected to finish second to last, and that was a huge point of contention within the program. They really, were not affected by that, but they definitely were well aware of that, and they took pride in beating that projection. I don't think they'll take anyone by surprise this year, but I feel like this is a firmly middle pack Big East team. Obviously you have your Marquettes and UConns, and then you have Providence could be coming on strong under Kim English, and I'm sure Georgetown will be a little bit better under Ed Cooley, but I really think Butler is heading in the right direction as well. So a mid pack finish, five, somewhere in the middle. I think they haven't really reached the upper echelon, but I think, especially with the experience they have, with Jamil Telford and Pierre Brooks, that they have guys that have been in the battles. They know how to go in the Big East, and obviously Hinkle is always going to be a tough place to play, so they'll always have that as in their back pocket, where you can't just be expected to go into Hinkle and get a win. So they just need to split with some of the Marquette and UConn. If they could just knock off one of those teams once or twice, that'd be a big. Or even the Creightons, but they play Creighton usually pretty tough. But just one or two of those big kind of upset wins is kind of what the team needs to get that boost and kind of help propel it forward.
All right, Akeem Glaspie, Butler insider for the Indy Star. Akeem, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you.
Yep, thanks for having me.
All right, thanks to Akeem for coming on. Really appreciate him taking some time out. I know with the fever in the playoffs and the Colts playing football and high school football going on, there's a lot going on in the city of Indianapolis right now, and he's in the mix of it for the Indy Star. So for him to take a little time out to talk college basketball was much appreciated. And obviously, I was kind of pleasantly surprised by how into the small ball lineup, the potential death lineup we might see from Butler. I didn't think that I thought I was thinking about that too much when I was doing the preview and writing that up last week. And I was like, they're probably not going to do that in all reality. But he seemed to be of the opinion that we might get a little bit more of that look from Thad Matta and his guys this year. So I'm curious to see what all that will look like when they come together in November. I appreciate Akeem coming on here. Appreciate all you guys watching, tune into this. And we will talk to you on the message boards.